From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, amid flooding,
we have no fields prepared this year.
A trade war with China.
This is strictly an economic issue that we're dealing with.
USDA releases new numbers on prospective plantings and grain stocks, and the news isn't sitting well.
Yeah, it's a bad deal and the market's not handling it well.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. It's the report producers have been waiting for, USDA's annual prospective plantings. But between those numbers and new grain stock numbers, markets took a beating on Friday, and traders are looking for relief today. First, prospective plantings. USDA calling corn to be king this year. It's estimating 92.8 million acres. That's up 4% or 3.66 million acres from last year. Now that came in above trade estimates. Soybeans estimated to be 84.6 million acres, down 5% from last year. And wheat estimated at 45.8 million acres. That's down 4%. That represents the lowest all wheat planted area since they began keeping records back in 1919. As for cotton, the estimate is 13.8 million acres. That's 2% less than last year. Now, I talked on Facebook Live Friday with Standard Grains' Joe Vaclavic.
The corn number at face value was surprisingly bearish. When you look at the average trade guess that was compiled by the newswires, not necessarily the opinion of everyone, but compiled by a newswire survey, we're 1.5 million acres above that in corn. So the knee-jerk reaction here is to look at that number and sell the corn market. Now, is it totally surprising that farmers intend to plant 92.8 million acres of corn? No, I don't think so. I mean, farmers have every incentive in the world here to switch out of soybeans and into corn this year.
But Ohio State's Ben Brown says there's another number to look at.
Total acreage came in 4.2 million acres less than what we planted last year for all principal crop acres. And so if we see a reduction in corn and soybean acreage, the question then becomes, does it go to smaller crops like chickpeas and canola and crops of that sort?
The expected rise in corn acres may not be a surprise. The surprise may be the amount. Betsy Gibbon joins us now with more.
Clinton, while the estimated 92.8 million corn acres may be above the trade guess, some wonder if that is really achievable given the flooding in the Midwest. But I asked an Indiana farmer about the planting, and he told me he had adjusted acres due to trade concerns, not weather, and he isn't looking back.
Indiana farmer Charlie Huyen is planting more corn this year.
So you're saying this is mostly because of trade and not necessarily weather or prices are rotation based?
This is strictly an economic issue that we're dealing with the trade with China. And then also we're finding in our local demand, we're having an ethanol plant that's going to be increasing production.
While U.S. delegates and their Chinese counterparts are in talks, he's not taking any chances until a deal is signed.
And we need to be prepared to be in a long, drawn-out fight with China.
He is one of many planting more corn this year for some reason. With Midwest flooding and a lack of fall field work, there's a question whether corn acres will stay.
I don't think it's impossible. I think that anything's possible. You could see a change in the weather pattern. That's a possibility. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that the corn number probably comes down a little bit from this, but you can't tell for sure.
Tim Gregerson is in ground zero of flooding along the Missouri River. He says acreage for flooded ground is uncertain.
We have no fields prepared this year, not even up home on our better, higher hill ground. So it could change our rotation yet, but it looks like right now, looking at this, our change is going to be less acres planted this year.
However, Gregerson says it's still his intention to plant more corn on his higher ground.
The hills around here will be able to move some soil enough to get them planted this spring and hopefully get a close to normal crop.
Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
USDA also rolling out its grain stocks report Friday and not offering up much good news. Soybean stocks continuing to be top heavy, with total beans up 29% from a year ago at 2.72 billion bushels. On farm stocks were nearly 50% higher. Corn in all positions totaling 8.6 billion bushels, down 3% from a year ago. But again, more of it is stored on farm. And wheat stocks tipping scales at 1.59 billion bushels, 6% higher On-farm storage also up significantly for wheat growers at 42% higher. All this news was not met with excitement. Corn took a beating on Friday. We'll have more on how it all went down at the CME coming up. China's top trade negotiators expected to travel to Washington this week. It comes on the heels of the U.S. and China wrapping up an 8th round of trade negotiations in Beijing on Friday. And as China buys more U.S. ag product. On Friday, USDA confirming China bought 816,000 metric tons of soybeans. Chinese Vice Premier Liu He, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, and U.S. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin posed for photos on Friday as they wrapped up the meetings, but they did not comment about the state of negotiations. Reuters saying China has made unprecedented offers and talks about forced technology transfers, but National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow said the Trump administration is prepared to keep negotiating for weeks or even months in the quest for a great deal. USDA releasing its quarterly hogs and pigs report. It shows the national hog herd here in the U.S. at 74.3 million head, a 2% increase from a year ago, but a decrease from December. Breeding inventory is up from both December and a year ago, while market hogs are up from last year but dipped from last quarter. Some analysts say there are signs of a slowdown after 5 years of expansion.
One thing which was a small surprise for us were the future intentions for breeding, for farrowing in this case. It looks like the March-May numbers in this case ran about 0.6% over last year, and the numbers for the next quarter only, in fact, implying a 0.3% year-over-year decrease. So as of March 1, producers were still in expansion, but they're planning on cutting back.
Nelson says a lot has changed since the survey was tallied, which means there are still unknowns regarding cutting back on expansion. He says there's also been a 25% rise in prices across the board as well. This spring's massive flooding along the Missouri River has renewed criticism of the agency that manages the river's dams. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says much of the water that created the flooding came from rain and melting snow, and all of that flowed into the river downstream of the dams. At the same time, massive amounts of water filled the reservoirs and some had to be released. But some people who live near the Missouri River believe the Corps isn't doing enough to prevent floods. Republican U.S. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri says Congress should consider serious reforms to ensure flood control is the agency's top priority. Meanwhile, work continues, at least temporarily, fix those dams and levees. The Corps sharing this video on Facebook as it's wrapped up work repairing a breach at Union Pike Levee on the Platte River in Valley, Nebraska. Now, it's estimated there are over 350 miles of levee on the Missouri, Platte, and Elkhorn rivers and tributaries with some sort of flood damage. And while many work just to reclaim their land, others are already out in the fields planting. Mike has more. Today's crop comments. Mike.
That's right, Clinton. We're still seeing pictures and videos of more farmers getting back into the fields. This video was shared by Delbert Armstrong Jr. He lives in Belhaven, North Carolina. That's in the eastern part of the state. Delbert already getting his corn in the ground for the coming season. Now let's take a look at the estimated rainfall last week. You can see why he's getting his corn in the ground. It didn't rain a whole lot there. Really, the bulk of the rain occurred through the middle of the country. Parts of Nebraska and Kansas got a little bit of extra rain, which they did not need, but the bulk of it was kind of southern Missouri into the Ohio River Valley, as you can see right there. We'll have more on your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
From another Chinese purchase of soybeans to the market implications of USDA's planting intentions report, we'll cover it all next in Agribusiness. And later, Machinery Pete's keeping his finger on the pulse of the equipment market. He joins us from his home office in Minnesota.
AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
As we said earlier, markets tanked on Friday after USDA released its prospective plantings report, and the grain stocks showing a mountain of soybeans in reserve. Here's more now from the CME.
Today in the grain market, after the USDA report, the soybeans fell. It was a mixed report really for beans with stocks and acreage. The acreage was a little bit lower. We thought we might get a little bit of a boost, but that's definitely not happening. We're still watching outside influences kind of like helping these markets. We know that the weather is going to be changing a lot of these acreage numbers, but who cares, because corn had an all-out collapse today. That's the real story of the day. The bears just absolutely pounded futures, down 17 cents. We haven't seen this kind of movement in quite a while. The stocks were up and the acres were way high. You can see the percentages of acres were in Arkansas as well as North Dakota, North and South Dakota. Interestingly enough, those states are a couple of the states that really were adversely affected by those winter storms.
We're joined now by Arlen Suderman, INTL FC Stone, via our remote studio in Kansas City. Arlen, as you look at the numbers that USDA put out on Friday, did you have any big takeaways of where we head from here?
Well, from this point forward, this kind of kicks off the planting season. So obviously we're going to be following weather as it unfolds. We've had one of the wettest springs on record, obviously with some of the record flooding. Ground is saturated across much of the western Midwest and wet across much of the rest of the Midwest. So anything that continues to bring rain across the Midwest, prevents us from drying out, is going to obviously shift these acreage intentions going forward. And then the other thing that plays into this is China, and that's going to have a big impact, and that's twofold. That's the trade deal. We seem to be making some progress toward a trade deal. How quickly will that happen? What will China agree to in the way of buying commodities in order to get an agreement? And what about African swine fever, and how will that play into the demand scenario for the commodities as well?
Were you surprised by the soybean number, given all the turbulence we've seen from outside pressure?
The stocks number is a little higher than normal, and that just means that they have to adjust the residual use number a little bit. That wasn't real significant. The acreage number came in quite a bit below what we anticipate is going to end up being. Obviously, there will be higher prevented planted acres this year, but I think we're going to see quite a few acres switch to soybeans. Our survey, which was done on March 15th, a couple weeks later, showed 87.7 million acres of soybeans.
Yeah. So as folks get ready to go through the rest of this next month through planting season, how likely is it that we see more movement in these acres and more switching?
Oh, I think it's I think it's very likely that we'll see more acres get switched around. Probably fewer corn acres, more soybeans, and I think more cotton acres as well. I think that was one of the bigger surprises, USDA undercounting cotton intentions.
Yeah. How many more acres of cotton do you think we could see? A million? A million and a half?
Well, I think we could very easily see 1 million more acres than what USDA reported. I know some places in the plains where the wheat didn't get planted are planning on significantly increasing cotton acres.
Yeah. So many things happening here in the next month or two. Appreciate your time, Arlen. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
Contact Arlen Suderman by email at arlen.suderman@intlfcstone.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the jet stream for next week. And Mike, looks like there may be a ripple there with some more storms possible.
Yeah, probably. We do go a little more zonal as we head through the week, so I'm kind of hoping none of these storms are widespread heavy rain or anything like that. As you can see, though, we are starting off with a trough in the northeast, another little piece of energy kind of trying to come in to the northern plains as well, and the troughiness all the way down into the southern plains and the southeast. That's why we have kind of cool temperatures to start the week. That last shot of energy kind of rides through and starts to head out through the northeast by the middle of the week, with a ridge building in through the plain states. Little ripple, a little storm system kind of coming through the western states, as you can see. But we're basically zonal as we head through the rest of the week, which means no major storm systems coming this way. But our models are kind of showing a pretty big weakness the early part of next week. But this is still milder than we've seen recently, with a lot of the cold air kind of bottled up in Canada for a change. So temperatures this week, I am still going to go below normal. And part of the reason for this is because it's wet. And that kind of keeps those high temperatures down a little bit. Now, we'll keep low temperatures up sometimes as well, but we'll go slightly below normal for the northern and central plains, near normal Starting off cold in the northeast Ohio Valley, but ending up a little warmer than normal. So we'll go near normal in those areas. Above normal sections, you can see basically central Rockies westward. Precipitation for the coming week, below normal from the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, back through the southern half of the plains into the southwest. Above normal, northern and central California, the northwest coast, and kind of in a streak across the northern plains into the northern Great Lakes. And depending on the track of a storm system off the southeast coast, will go above normal for some of those areas as well. All right, 90-day outlook. April temperatures first above normal in the east, Pacific Northwest, below normal from South Dakota down into Arizona. May temperatures below normal for kind of that central mountain area, western plains, above normal far northwest, the eastern third of the country. And more of the same in June, above normal in the east, northwest, below normal kind of in the northern and central plains. Precipitation for the next 90 days. This is always kind of tough, but we're going to go above normal. Nebraska, Colorado don't really need that obviously there. Down into parts of the southeast, down into Texas, and then below normal for the northwest and the far north, I should say the northeast and the far northwest. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Well, head to Biggs, Oregon. First of all, mostly cloudy, showers around, high temperature of 61. Wichita Falls, Texas, cool with clouds and a little sunshine, high of 54. And Chattanooga, Tennessee, partly sunny and on the mild side, high of 61.
You need a good truck to pull all that stuff around on the farm? Well, Machinery Pete looks at a couple of pretty good buys.
Hey, stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'm going to be telling you about a semi and a pickup that I think you're going to be talking about for a long time.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
I think it's safe to say farmers like trucks, and apparently they're pretty important to have around the place. Machinery Pete joins us with more. Pete?
All right, let's talk trucks today, folks. Now, the last 20 years, I've compiled almost 60,000 auction prices just on pickups and semis. Tremendous interest in them out there. And it was proven last Thursday, a pair of social media posts I did just went viral off the charts. One on a semi, one on a pickup. Now, here's a picture of the semi, a 2007 Peterbilt 379. Folks, this thing's got 2,444 actual miles on it. A pre-emission rig like this, like new condition, unbelievable. Now it's for sale in Caledonia, Wisconsin by a private seller in on consignment with Amston Trailer Sales. Now, interesting backstory on this truck. It was the last truck purchased by Don Finetti before he passed away. Now, you might remember that name, Don Finetti. He was the famous Alice Chalmers tractor collector, and his online estate auction in Menominee, Wisconsin back in August of 16 created amazing interest. And one of the reasons for it was Don owned the last Alice tractor ever made, this 1985 model 6070 with 29 hours on it. Now, Don's widow purchased it on the auction, paid $46,000 for it. And in one of the pictures of the Peterbilt 379 for sale, behind it, you can actually see that 6070 sitting there, the last Alice Chalmers tractor made. Now, the pickup post that I did last Thursday, well, here's a picture of it. A Chevy Longfoot with a 12-foot bed on it. I didn't even know this was a thing. Now, folks, my only comment on this pickup was, I think I found the perfect prom ride.
Are you the newest millionaire in the U.S.? Someone is, and it has everyone in a small Wisconsin town pretty excited. Next.
All in a Row, a new resource for crop and farm management information, is brought to you by Farm Journal and Valent USA.
Someone or a group of people in Wisconsin must be pretty excited this morning. They're kicking off the week as millionaires. The Wisconsin Lottery says a single ticket matched all 6 Powerball numbers last week. Whoever it is won the 3rd largest jackpot in U.S. lottery history. It was sold in New Berlin. That's roughly 14 miles southwest of Milwaukee. That one little piece of paper is worth an estimated $768.4 million. Now, some people in the town say they're getting calls and text messages from friends all over the country asking if they're the lucky winner.
Well, exciting. I mean, you know, I was hoping it was me, but I wasn't that lucky. So then I thought, well, whoever it is, it'd be great if I knew them. And I just hope they're kind. I hope they're generous. It's a dream of a billion lifetimes, so I'm really happy for whoever that is.
Now, if you take the cash option on that payout, it's $477 million. Not too shabby to start the week. That's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.